Every D-Day documentary starts the same way. Omaha Beach, American soldiers, Saving Private Ryan. That 27-minute opening sequence grossed $480 million, won 5 Academy Awards, and permanently branded the visual grammar of June 6, 1944, into global consciousness. Band of Brothers reinforced it 3 years later. Purely American. The Longest Day in 1962 at least included British storylines, but the film is remembered for John Wayne wading ashore, Robert Mitchum on the bluffs. And so the story narrowed, and narrowed, until it became a single image: American soldiers on an American beach. But here's the thing. On June 6, 1944, roughly 75,000 British and Canadian troops landed by sea across 3 beaches: Gold, Juno and Sword, while 57,000 Americans came ashore at their 2. The British and Canadian seaborne contingent was larger. The entire naval operation, Operation Neptune, was commanded by British Admiral Sir Bertram Ramsay. The Allied Air Forces answered to Air Chief Marshal Sir Trafford Leigh-Mallory. The Ground Forces commander was Montgomery. And on the easternmost beach of the invasion, a stretch of Normandy sand codenamed Sword, a 21-year-old Scottish piper walked through machine gun fire, playing Highland Laddie, while men died around him. And the Germans didn't shoot him because they thought he'd gone completely mad. You've never heard that story. You're about to live it. It is June 4th, 1944, and you aren't going anywhere. You're a soldier of the British 3rd Infantry Division. You've been briefed, equipped, sealed into your marshalling camp near Portsmouth for days. You know your beach. You know your landing craft number. You know the gap in the sea wall you're supposed to reach. You've studied sand tables and aerial photographs until you can see the obstacles in your sleep. And now you're being told the whole thing is off. Not cancelled, postponed. 24 hours. A storm in the Channel. 24 hours doesn't sound like much. It is an eternity. You sit in your tent or lean against a wall or pace the perimeter, and you think about tomorrow. You think about the ramp dropping. You think about the water. You think about what machine gun fire does to a man standing in the open with nowhere to hide. You write a letter home that says nothing real, because anything real would be censored and anything true would terrify your mother. Some men play cards, some men sleep or pretend to, some men pray. Some clean their weapons for the 3rd time that day because it gives their hands something to do that isn't shaking. The decision to go comes from Group Captain James Stagg, the chief meteorologist, who finds a narrow window in the weather and promises conditions that are, his word, tolerable. Not good, not favourable, tolerable. And on that single word, the largest seaborne invasion in human history lurches back into motion. It is the evening of June 5th, 1944, and you are leaving England. Your landing craft is pulling away from the Portsmouth shoreline into the English Channel. The crossing is 100 miles. It'll take most of the night, and the weather is still foul. The Channel tonight is Force 5 on the Beaufort scale. Winds between 17 and 21 knots. Waves cresting at 6 feet. And you are packed standing in an LCA, Landing Craft Assault. A flat-bottomed, plywood-hulled box, roughly 41 feet long, with steel armour rising 3 feet above the waterline. No seating, no heating, no shelter from the spray that breaks over the gunnels every few seconds and drenches you through. 34 other men are pressed against you. You can't move. You're carrying between 60 and 80 pounds of kit: rifle, ammunition, grenades, entrenching tool, gas mask, rations, water bottle, anti-gas cape.
Some men have drawn extra loads, mortar rounds, a Bangalore torpedo, a radio set strapped to the back. The weight is crushing on solid ground. On this pitching, slamming, lurching craft, it's disabling. You can't brace yourself. You can't sit. You stand in the dark and absorb every impact through your legs, your spine, your stomach. The man to your right is someone you've trained with for months. You know his name, his wife's name, the town he's from. You don't talk. There's nothing to say that either of you wants to hear. The engine drones, the hull slams into a wave trough, and the impact jolts through your knees. Salt spray catches your face. You taste it. You'll taste it for the rest of your life. The seasickness starts within the first hour. It doesn't stop. You were issued hyoscine tablets before embarkation. They do nothing. You were given a paper bag. It fills in minutes. The man next to you is vomiting over the side. The man behind you is vomiting onto the deck. The smell hits. Bile and half-digested rations mixing with diesel fumes and sharp brine. And then you're retching too. And there's nothing left but your body keeps going, abdominal muscles cramping, eyes streaming, and the boat keeps pitching, and the spray keeps coming, and the hours keep dragging, and you begin to understand something terrible. You're more afraid of this crossing than the beach, because the beach is still abstract, but this misery is real, and it's happening now, and it will not end. A rum ration comes down the line. A small tot of navy rum. Some men's stomachs reject it instantly. Some grip the warmth like a lifeline. Makes no difference. The crossing goes on. The English Channel in early June 1944 sits at 13 to 15 degrees Celsius, 55 to 59 Fahrenheit. You don't know that number yet. You will. In the hours before dawn, the world changes. You hear it before you see it. A sound so vast it seems to come from the sky itself. The warships of the Royal Navy, battleships, cruisers, destroyers, positioned miles offshore, open fire at 5:30 British double summertime. And the shells pass over your craft with a tearing freight train roar you feel in your chest. Salvo after salvo after salvo. The Normandy coast, still invisible in the grey pre-dawn murk, is being shattered. You see flashes on the horizon, columns of smoke climbing into a sky the colour of wet concrete. You tell yourself the beach defences are being pulverised, that there'll be nothing left when you get there. You don't believe it. Shapes appear in the water around you as the LCAs begin their final run. Low, dark, struggling shapes that resolve into tanks. DD tanks, duplex drive Shermans, fitted with inflatable canvas skirts and propellers, swimming toward shore under their own power. These are Hobart's Funnies, the specialised vehicles of Major General Percy Hobart's 79th Armoured Division. Flail tanks to beat the sand and detonate mines. AVRE. Engineering tanks to blast bunkers. Crocodile flamethrowers. At Sword Beach, the DD tanks are launched at closer range than elsewhere, and the majority make it. They'll be firing on German positions when the infantry arrives. Their presence here, and their absence from certain other sectors, is one of the quieter details of this day. A detail worth sitting with. The coast is visible now. Flat sand and dunes. Buildings behind them. Smoke drifting. The beach lies between the resort towns of Lyon-sur-Mer to the west and Ouistreham to the east. A stretch of firm sand backed by dunes and beach houses and low ground leading inland to Hermanville-sur-Mer. It's a narrow frontage, much narrower than it should be. That's going to be a problem. 7:25 British double summertime, June 6, 1944. H hour. The ramp drops. Cold hits first. The water is chest deep, and it locks your diaphragm so completely you can't breathe for 2 full seconds. Your boots find the sandy bottom, and 60 pounds of kit tries to drive you under. The surf shoves you sideways. You force yourself forward. 1 step, another. Water to your waist now. Rifle above your head, because that's what they trained you to do. Keep the weapon dry. Keep moving. Don't stop. Then the noise. The MG-42 doesn't sound like a gun. It sounds like fabric being torn by something enormous. 1,200 rounds per minute, so fast the human ear can't separate one shot from the next. A continuous, high-pitched, ripping shriek. Bullets hit the water around you in little geysers. Somewhere to your left, a man goes down and doesn't come up. Mortar rounds now. The hollow thump of launch, the whistle, the detonation, sand and spray and shrapnel erupting 20 yards away. 30. 10. You're wading through the killing zone, and there is nowhere to go except forward. The beach is chaos, burning vehicles, wrecked landing craft slewed sideways. And the obstacles, you can see them now. Element C, the Belgian gates. Heavy steel frames 10 feet high, angled toward the sea. Hembalken, wooden ramps tipped with telemines. Steel hedgehogs, mined stakes driven into sand at angles, some shattered by bombardment, some still standing, still lethal. You thread between them while the tide rises behind you. Obstacles exposed now will be underwater within the hour, invisible to the craft still coming in. The defenders are the 716th Infantry Division, a static formation, not elite, but dug in with pre-registered fields of fire. Their positions are organized into strongpoints designated WN, Widerstandsnest, WN Cod, near the waterline, the Morris strongpoint further back, and inland, Hillman, deep bunkers, extensive wire, minefields, interlocking fire. Across these positions, MG-42s, 50mm anti-tank guns, 75mm guns, 88mm dual-purpose guns, mortar pits. You're a soldier of the 2nd East Yorkshires or the 1st South Lancashires, the assault battalions hitting the beach in the first wave. You are running now. Sand firm, but boots waterlogged, pack dragging, lungs burning, and the noise beyond anything training prepared you for. The crack of incoming rounds, the whip snap of near misses, the deeper crump of mortars, men shouting, men screaming, the insane roar of naval shells still falling on positions inland. You're running toward the sea wall because that's where the fire is coming from, but it's also the only cover on this flat, open stretch of nothing. 683 men will become casualties on Sword Beach today. That number hides the ferocity at the choke points, beach exits where men and vehicles funnel through narrow gaps under pre-registered fire, the congestion worsening with every wave because this frontage is too cramped to hold them all. The exits won't be cleared until 9 o'clock. Until then, the beach is a killing floor. And then you hear the bagpipes. Impossible. Piercing and wild and unmistakable, cutting through gunfire and explosions and screaming like something from a different century. You look toward the waterline. He's wading through the surf, waist deep in freezing water. No weapon. He's carrying a set of Highland bagpipes, the same pipes his father played in the First World War. And he is playing them. The tune is Highland Laddie. He's 21 years old. His name is Bill Millen, Private William Millen of the Cameron Highlanders, personal piper to Brigadier Simon Fraser, 15th Lord Lovett, commander of the 1st Special Service Brigade. He's walking, not running, not crouching, walking through the surf while men fall around him, while machine gun fire rakes the waterline,
while mortar rounds throw up geysers of sand and spray. Lovett ordered it.
As their ramp dropped into the channel, Lovett turned to Millin and said something to the effect of, "Give us a tune, Piper." Millin hesitated, pointed out it was against regulations. The War Office had banned pipers from playing in combat after the catastrophic losses in the First World War, where pipers leading men over the top were cut down in appalling numbers. Lovett's response, as Millin recounted it in interviews over the following decades: "That's the English War Office. You and I are Scottish. Play on." Lovett was 32, a Scottish aristocrat, clan chief of the Frasers, educated at Ampleforth and Oxford. He'd already distinguished himself in commando raids at Dieppe, Norway and Africa. He came ashore at Sword Beach, wearing a white roll-neck sweater under his battle dress and carrying not a regulation weapon but his father's old hunting rifle, because he preferred it. Tall, handsome, and possessed of a calm so absolute it functioned on a battlefield as a kind of weapon in itself. And so Bill Millin, born in Regina, Saskatchewan, raised in Glasgow, slightly built, 21 years old, walked out of the English Channel and onto the sand at Sword Beach playing Highland Laddie, while the German army tried to kill everyone around him. On the beach, he switched to Road to the Isles and kept playing as the commandos pushed off the sand. Years after the war, Millin met German veterans who'd been defending Sword Beach that morning. He asked the obvious question: "Why didn't you shoot me? I was right there, walking, unarmed, the easiest target on the beach." They told him they didn't fire because they thought he'd gone completely mad, and they didn't shoot madmen. The most Scottish act of defiance imaginable. A 21-year-old piper walking through machine gun fire because a clan chief told him to ignore the English and play on. And nobody's heard of it, because it wasn't in an American film. Now rewind, because you need to understand what's waiting inland and why the next 6 hours will nearly break the entire invasion. 16 minutes past midnight, 0016 on the morning of June 6th. Somewhere above the Normandy countryside, in total darkness, you are sitting in a Horsa glider. The plywood fuselage creaks around you. There is no engine. There hasn't been one since the Halifax bomber towing you released the cable minutes ago. And now there is only the wind, a rushing, whistling roar against the airframe, and the breathing of the men packed onto benches on either side of you, and the absolute sickening knowledge that you are falling. Gliding, technically. But the distinction feels academic when you can't see the ground and you can't control the speed, and the pilot up front is searching for landmarks in the darkness below. 6 Horsa gliders are coming in toward 2 bridges near the village of Bénouville, one over the Caen Canal, one over the River Orne, 5 to 6 miles inland from what will be Sword Beach in 7 hours. Operation Deadstick. The pilots have been trained to land on a precise strip of grass beside the canal bridge, at night, without power, and they are flying with a precision that borders on the miraculous. The margin for error is essentially 0. The first glider comes in fast. The wheels hit the earth. The fuselage bucks, skids, tears through grass and soil, the occupants thrown forward against their restraints, equipment slamming loose, the noise of the landing obliterating everything. Grinding, splintering wood, men shouting. And then the glider stops. Its nose has punched through the perimeter wire of the Caen Canal Bridge. D Company, 2nd Battalion, Oxfordshire and Buckinghamshire Light Infantry. Major John Howard commanding. His men pour out of the wreckage into darkness, disoriented, ears ringing, some of them bleeding from the impact, and they charge. The German sentries on the bridge don't understand what's happening.
There were no engines, no parachutes, just silence, and then a shattering crash, and then men with blackened faces sprinting out of the dark, firing Sten guns. The bridge is taken in 10 minutes. A furious close-quarters assault, grenades, small arms, men fighting at point-blank range. And it's over. The Orne crossing falls almost simultaneously. By midnight, both bridges are in British hands. The first pieces of Allied-held ground in occupied France. The canal bridge will be renamed Pegasus Bridge, after the winged horse insignia of British airborne forces. But Howard has fewer than 200 men. He's holding 2 river crossings against everything the Germans can throw. Through the darkness, probes test his positions. Small arms crackle. A German gunboat approaches along the canal and is driven off. The wider 6th Airborne Division, under Major General Richard Gale, is landing across the eastern flank in these same hours, but parachute drops are scattered badly. Men coming down in flooded fields, miles from objectives, and units spend the night in fragmented fighting around Huonville and the Orne crossings. Howard's company is largely alone, and somewhere behind them in the darkness sits the 21st Panzer Division, the only full German armoured division in the immediate area. If those tanks reach the bridges before the seaborne forces arrive, Howard's lightly armed men will be annihilated. The bridges will be lost. German armour will drive straight through to the coast and split the entire invasion in 2. Everything depends on the link-up. Back on the beach, it's past 9 o'clock now. The exits are finally clearing, and the push inland begins. This is where the story stops being about getting ashore and starts being about staying alive while you fight through a landscape that's been fortified for 4 years. The 3rd Infantry Division is driving south off Sword Beach, and every yard is contested. The Morris strongpoint falls first, a complex of bunkers and gun positions between the beach and Hermanville. The assault troops take it, but it costs time and it costs lives. And every hour spent cracking a strongpoint is an hour Howard's men don't have at Pegasus Bridge. Then comes Hillman. And Hillman is a different kind of problem entirely. Strongpoint Hillman is a fortress complex. It sits on a low rise south of Hermanville. Deep concrete bunkers with overhead cover thick enough to shrug off naval shells, surrounded by minefields and dense barbed wire, with interlocking fields of fire covering every approach. The bombardment hasn't touched it. Not really. Bombs fell around it. Naval shells cratered the surrounding fields. But the bunkers themselves are intact, and the garrison inside is alive and alert, and their MG-42s are loaded. You're with the assault battalion when you hit the outer wire, and you stop. Because the wire isn't a single fence, it's a belt. Rolls of concertina wire stacked and tangled and stretched across the approaches in a band so deep you can't see through it to the other side. Behind it, the minefield. Behind that, the first embrasures, narrow horizontal slits in concrete from which the barrels of machine guns protrude. You go flat. Everyone goes flat. The grass is short and offers nothing. Men are trying to cut the wire with hand tools, working forward on their bellies, and the fire coming out of those bunkers is relentless. Short, controlled bursts from the MG-42s, rounds cracking over your head so close you can feel the displaced air on the back of your neck. Someone tries to rush the wire and gets caught in it, tangled, struggling, exposed. The burst that kills him lasts less than 2 seconds. You can't go forward. You can't flank. The minefield extends in every direction. You can't call in more naval fire because your own troops are too close to the position. You wait. Hours pass. The frustration is a physical sensation, a grinding, teeth-clenching awareness that every minute wasted here is a minute Howard's men are dying at Pegasus Bridge. Every minute wasted here is a minute Caen isn't being captured. And you can't do a single thing about it except lie in the grass and listen to the machine guns and wait for the engineers. When the AVRE engineering tanks from Hobart's 79th Armoured Division finally grind forward, they bring the firepower to blast the bunkers open. The first round hits the face of a bunker and the detonation shakes the ground under your chest. Concrete cracks. Dust and debris blast outward. Another round. Another. AVRE crews are working under direct fire, manoeuvring their vehicles across ground they know is mined, stopping to fire, repositioning, firing again. One by one the embrasures go silent. Assault teams rush forward with grenades and Sten guns, clearing each position in close-quarter fighting that is as ugly as combat gets. Dark concrete chambers, blind corners, point-blank range. Hillman doesn't fall until the early hours of June 7th. By then, the timetable is in ruins, and the timetable matters. Because the 3rd Infantry Division's objective for D-Day, the prize circled on every briefing map, the vital road and rail hub that was to be taken by nightfall, is Caen. 9 miles inland. They won't get there. Not today, not for another month. The combination of strong point resistance, congestion on the narrow beach, and the afternoon's crisis will stall the advance well short of the city. It's an important truth. This wasn't a triumph wrapped in a bow. It was a messy, bloody, incomplete success. And anyone who tells you otherwise is selling you a film. But the immediate concern isn't Caen. It's Pegasus Bridge. This is the task that falls to Lovett's 1st Special Service Brigade as they push off Sword Beach and drive inland. It isn't a clean sprint. It's a grinding, contested march through Hermonville-sur-Mer, past unreduced strongpoints, under sporadic mortar fire and sniper rounds cracking past without warning. Snipers are the particular horror of this march. You don't hear the shot that kills you, but you hear the shot that kills the man in front of you. A wet crack, and then he's down, and you can't see where it came from, and you keep moving, because stopping means dying. 5 to 6 miles over ground where every hedgerow might conceal a machine gun position. Every church tower might hold a man with a scope. Lovett is watching the clock. He's promised Howard. And at the head of the column, again, Bill Millin, playing blue bonnets over the border. Because these men are crossing a border, from the beach into the battle for a continent. They reach Pegasus Bridge between 1300 and 1330 on the afternoon of June 6th. Howard's men have been fighting since 16 minutes past midnight, over 12 hours. They are filthy, hollow-eyed, running on nothing, dwindling ammunition. The dead lie where they fell because there's been no time to move them. The wounded are propped against walls, tended by medics working with whatever they have left. The perimeter is slit trenches and rubble, and men who've repelled probe after probe through the longest night any of them have ever known. They smell of cordite and sweat and blood and the acrid stink of concrete dust from near-miss detonations. They hear the pipes before they see the commandos, that thin, wild sound growing louder through the trees. An impossible sound, like something from home, from another world, cutting through smoke and the crackle of small arms. Then the green berets appear on the road. Lovett strides up to Howard. His white roll-neck sweater is still visible beneath his battle dress. His father's hunting rifle is slung over his shoulder. He is unhurried. He might be arriving at a garden party. He's just marched 6 miles through occupied France under mortar and sniper fire, and he looks like a man slightly annoyed that traffic was bad. And he delivers the line that's passed into legend. "Sorry we're a couple of minutes late." Howard, exhausted, filthy, half-deaf from 12 hours of combat, stares at this apparition of aristocratic calm. An apology for tardiness, delivered under fire, as though he's been held up at a luncheon. Millin pipes the commandos across Pegasus Bridge, while small arms fire cracks overhead, the sound of the bagpipes echoing off the water of the Caen Canal. And Howard's men, who have held these bridges through the longest night of their lives, watch them come. Some of them weep, not because they're sentimental, because they're alive, and an hour ago they weren't sure they would be. The afternoon brings the crisis. The 21st Panzer Division, under General-Lieutenant Edgar Feuchtinger, is the only German armoured formation to mount a major counterattack on D-Day itself. And what happens next nearly undoes everything. In the late afternoon, panzer elements push north. They find the seam, the gap between Sword Beach and Juno Beach to the west, where the two invasion sectors haven't yet joined up. And they drive straight through it. German tanks roll past scattered British positions, past fields littered with the debris of the morning's fighting. And they reach the coast between Lyon-sur-Mer and Luc-sur-Mer. Tanks on the waterfront. German armour sitting on the sand, crews looking out at the English Channel, at the invasion fleet anchored offshore, at the supply ships still ferrying men and material ashore. For a brief, terrifying window on the afternoon of June 6, 1944, a German panzer force is parked between two Allied beachheads with the sea at its back and nothing but confusion on either side. This is the most dangerous moment of the entire day in the British sector, maybe the most dangerous moment of the entire invasion. If Feuchtinger is reinforced, if a second German division pushes through that corridor, the front will be split. Sword Beach isolated, the 6th Airborne cut off. The eastern flank of the invasion peeled open. Everything that happened today, every man who drowned in the surf, every soldier who bled out on the sand, every commando who marched through sniper fire to reach Pegasus Bridge, all of it for nothing. But on the eastern flank, the 6th Airborne is holding. Pegasus Bridge is secure. Lovett's commandos and Howard's battered company are dug in and they are not moving. The hinge holds. And then the sky fills up. A massive glider reinforcement wave for the 6th Airborne sweeps in from the north. 252 gliders, carrying men, vehicles and heavy equipment, darkening the evening sky in a stream that stretches from horizon to horizon. The drone of their engines builds until it's the only sound in the world. From the ground, looking up, it is overwhelming. From a German tank commander's cupola between Lyon-sur-Mer and Luc-sur-Mer, it is terrifying. Because those gliders are landing behind you, east of the Orne, on the flank you were supposed to break through. And if the troops pouring out of them cut your line of retreat, your Panzer Kampfgruppe will be trapped between two armies with its back to the sea. The German commanders hesitate. Hesitation becomes doubt. Doubt becomes withdrawal. The 21st Panzer Division pulls back. The invasion holds. Barely. By nightfall on June 6th, the 3rd Infantry Division has pushed inland, but hasn't reached Caen. That city won't fall for another month. The beachhead is shallow, contested, and fragile. Men are digging in for the night in positions they know aren't deep enough, aren't strong enough, aren't far enough from the coast. They can still hear the sea behind them. They can hear firing in every direction. They've been awake for more than 30 hours. Their uniforms are stiff with salt and sand and dried blood, some of it theirs, some of it not. But they're in France, and they're not leaving. Bill Millin survived D-Day, survived the war. He gave interviews for decades, quiet and unassuming, a man who seemed slightly bewildered that anyone found his story remarkable. He died in 2010 at the age of 88. His bagpipes ended up in the Dawlish Museum in Devon. Not exactly the Imperial War Museum, is it? Lord Lovat was badly wounded by shrapnel later in the Normandy campaign. He survived, but the wounds were so severe he never returned to active command. Major John Howard, who held Pegasus Bridge through that impossible night, survived the war and spent decades honouring the memory of D Company and the glider troops who flew with him into the dark. Here is what I want you to carry away from this. 75,000 British and Canadian soldiers hit those beaches on June 6, 1944. 683 became casualties at Sword alone. They fought under a British naval commander, a British air commander, a British ground commander. A 21-year-old piper walked through machine gun fire playing Highland Laddie because his clan chief told him to ignore the English War Office. Commandos marched 6 miles under fire to reach a bridge held by glider troops who'd been fighting since midnight. A brigadier apologized for being 2 minutes late. And an entire German panzer division turned around because the eastern flank, the flank these men built with their blood and their bagpipes and their absurd, magnificent stubbornness, would not break. No major film has ever told this story to the world. 80 years of silence. 80 years of someone else's version. Now you know. If this changed what you thought you knew about D-Day, subscribe. There are more stories like this one, and they've been waiting a long time to be told.